On August 6, 2023, a supermarket camera in Anchorage recorded a 21-year-old United States Army soldier buying new bedsheets. Later, he returned for hydrogen peroxide, a spray bottle and other cleaning products. That evening, another camera captured him purchasing a wheeled container capable of holding 96 gallons. The man was Zarrius Hildabrand, and according to the story he soon gave police, his wife had vanished earlier that day. Saria Hildabrand had supposedly left their apartment for a restaurant less than 1 mile away. She had no vehicle, had left her telephone behind and had not been seen since. Yet Zarrius did not immediately report her missing. He spent the day replacing bedding and buying equipment that investigators would later connect to a very different account. It begins with a journey so short that Sariah should never have been able to disappear. Saria Barney Hildabrand was 21 years old and had recently moved from Utah to Alaska to build a future with her husband. She enlisted in the National Guard in 2021 and trained as a combat medic, while also working at a restaurant and taking college classes. Friends and relatives described her as hardworking, affectionate, and deeply loved by the people around her. Alaska was not really her home. Sariah remained in frequent contact with her mother, Meredith, and her closest friend in Anchorage, Marie Wenz. Marie was accustomed to hearing from her throughout the day. Long silences were unusual. Sariah met Zarrius during military training. They married in December 2022, after knowing each other for less than a year, then settled into an apartment near Mockingbird Drive. On Saturday, August 5th, Sariah organized a night out for Zarrius's 21st birthday. Eventually, the husband and wife left the celebrations, and they returned home in a rideshare during the early hours of Sunday. A few hours later, still Sunday morning, Zarrius said that his wife left at approximately 10 a.m. to walk to work. The restaurant was barely 1 mile away, and the route crossed an ordinary residential area. He also said she had forgotten her telephone. However, she never arrived. She did not contact her mother, respond to Marie, or return home after the shift she was supposedly traveling towards. Yet Zarrius waited through Sunday, went to his military duties on Monday, and still did not personally initiate the missing person report. Marie eventually called emergency services after Sariah had been silent for roughly 2 days. At first, the case appeared to involve a young woman who had vanished during a short walk, and at the restaurant, investigators were about to discover that her telephone had not remained silent at all. The first contradiction came from Sariah's workplace. Zarrius told police she left the apartment at around 10 on Sunday morning without her telephone, but at approximately 10:45, her manager received a message from Sariah's number saying she would not be coming in. Marie already knew Sariah had considered calling out. The message therefore contained believable information, but it did not prove Sariah had written it. By the time Sariah's mother arrived from Utah, military personnel, police and volunteers were searching the neighborhood. Meredith Barney helped organize posters, but Zarrius's behavior quickly unsettled her. He wanted Sariah's surname changed on the posters from Barney to Hildabrand and asked for Meredith's telephone number to be replaced with his own. Meredith later said he repeatedly found reasons not to distribute posters, visit the police station or join searches. She also described him as reluctant to let her and another relative move around without him. None of that proved he had harmed Sariah, but while she was still officially missing, Zarrius asked one of her friends which of Sariah's belongings should eventually be returned to the family. He mentioned her childhood blanket and wedding ring. Police returned to the apartment to clarify the timeline. They noticed new bed sheets on the kitchen counter, while the original bedding was gone. Zarrius claimed the replacements had been purchased much earlier. Store records would show otherwise. When officers asked to look beneath the bed, he refused, saying private items underneath would embarrass him. Without a warrant, they could not force the issue. But the new bedding, the message from Sariah's cell phone, and the delayed report had changed the investigation. The 1-mile route was no longer its center, but now the apartment was. Police returned with a search warrant. The bedroom appeared to have been put back in order. The bed had been remade, and the Pickle Rick toy that Sariah won during the birthday outing was now sitting on top. A closer examination revealed small reddish-brown marks around the floor and bed frame, along with a mop bucket and cleaning equipment. When investigators lifted the mattress, they found the reason Zarrius had resisted the earlier search. The underside was heavily saturated with red DNA material. The staining was extensive enough to preserve an impression from part of the bed frame. Investigators used Blue Star, a chemical that reacts with traces containing hemoglobin. Despite an apparent cleaning attempt, the response was intense. One Anchorage police sergeant described it as among the strongest reactions he had encountered. A detective told the jury that a major event had occurred on the bed and that movement helped create the staining. The defense later challenged how far she could interpret the pattern, but there was no meaningful dispute that Sariah had suffered a catastrophic injury inside the bedroom. 2 firearms were recovered. So were cleaning products matching items Zarrius bought after Sariah was last seen. Surveillance showed him purchasing new bedding, hydrogen peroxide and an empty spray bottle at Fred Meyer. That evening he bought a wheeled 96-gallon container from Lowe's. Cameras recorded the transactions, and identifying information attached to the purchases made them easy to trace. Officers also found a letter written by Zarrius. He asked that the dogs be cared for and requested that he and Sariah eventually be buried together. In one passage, he wrote that he had loved Sariah, while elsewhere insisting he had no idea what had actually happened to his wife. The letter could not establish how her life ended. It did suggest Zarrius was preparing for an outcome he had not admitted publicly. Police no longer believed Sariah had disappeared on her way to work. They believed she had never left the apartment alive. The next question was where Zarrius had taken her. Just a quick one. For some reason, my videos are normally seen by just 1 to 2% of my subscribers. I actually don't know why. Regardless of the reasons, it's making it extremely challenging to keep this show on the road. And I promise I don't like to do this. It makes me feel like Oliver Twist or something. But please do consider becoming a channel member. There are currently 343 of you, and I'm aiming for the crazy goal of 1,000 by the end of 2026. You get things like early access to videos, our behind-the-scenes podcast, and of course my eternal gratitude. Thank you, and I love you all. Now, back to the video. Investigators widened the search around the apartment complex. A drone was used to examine areas that were difficult to search from the ground. Attention eventually turned to a stormwater structure concealed beneath a heavy cover near the couple's home. When officers opened it, they found Sariah inside. The drain extended approximately 15 to 20 feet, and her body was lying in about 2 feet of water. Bedding had been placed inside with her, including material missing from the apartment. The location changed the meaning of everything Zarrius did during the search. While Sariah's mother traveled from Utah, while soldiers and volunteers examined streets and woodland, and while posters were distributed across Anchorage, Sariah had remained only a short distance from the home she shared with her husband. The search had been directed towards a woman supposedly walking to work. In reality, the evidence remained concentrated around the apartment. The telephone, the mattress, the cleaning products, the new bedding, and now the drain. Zarrius was arrested, and the investigation formally became a homicide case. But even after admitting that he concealed Sariah, Zarrius would continue to deny causing the fatal injury. That distinction became the center of his defense. To understand the competing versions of Sariah's final night, investigators returned to the birthday celebration. Sariah had organized the evening for Zarrius and invited friends to join them. The group visited Dave & Buster's and several bars before Zarrius became too intoxicated to enter the final venue. Sariah left with him and the couple traveled home together. After they returned, evidence of Zarrius's affair appeared on Sariah's telephone. He had been exchanging intimate messages and images with a woman named Cheyenne and had discussed flying her to Alaska. Zarrius later admitted the affair. He also admitted that screenshots exposing it had been transferred from his telephone to Sariah's. The prosecution argued that Sariah confronted him and that the discovery provided the context for what followed. At approximately 2:45 that morning, a neighbor heard what sounded like a firearm discharge from a nearby apartment. Officers were alerted, but the source was not identified at the time. Sariah suffered a fatal injury above her left temple. The prosecution maintained that Zarrius operated the weapon after the affair was exposed. The defense presented a different account. Zarrius said his intoxication left him unable to remember what happened after the couple returned home. He claimed that he later awoke, discovered the screenshots and began searching for Sariah inside the apartment. According to his testimony, he uncovered her in the bed and saw the injury for the first time. He did not call emergency services. Instead, he deleted the screenshots from the telephones. He used Sariah's device to contact her workplace and create the impression that she was still alive. He then began purchasing the items investigators later recovered or documented. The defense argued that these were the irrational actions of a frightened young man who believed he would be blamed for something he could not remember. The prosecution viewed the same sequence very differently. The messages delayed concern at Sariah's workplace. The cleaning products disturbed the scene. The replacement bedding disguised what had happened in the bedroom. The wheeled container allowed Sariah to be moved without being carried openly. Each decision made the truth harder to recover, and Zarrius's claim of memory loss created a problem that could not be resolved by his testimony alone. And because he said he remembered nothing from the crucial period, he therefore could not explain who actually operated the weapon, if not him. He could only describe what he chose to do afterwards. When Zarrius took the stand, he did not attempt to deny the cover-up. He admitted to essentially everything, except actually ending his wife's time on this earth. He also admitted why he chose the rear exit of the apartment building. It was the closest way out that, as far as he knew, was not covered by cameras. According to his testimony, he placed Sariah into the container that he had bought, moved her outside, and transported her to the storm drain. He removed the heavy cover, lowered her down into it, along with the contaminated bedding, replaced the cover, and walked away. After returning home, he showered. The next day, he went to work. Zarrius described himself as overwhelmed by fear, shame, and guilt. He said he believed he could lose his family and go to prison for something he could not remember doing. But the sequence he described was not a single panicked decision. It required repeated choices over many hours. He deleted evidence before contacting anyone. He impersonated Sariah to delay concern. He traveled between stores, selected products, returned to the apartment, cleaned the bedroom, chose an exit he believed was not monitored, and concealed her beneath a structure designed to remain closed for a long time. He also admitted that he initially considered burning the contaminated items, before then deciding against it, probably because it would have drawn too much attention and been too suspicious. The defense asked the jury to separate those actions from the fatal event itself. Zarrius could be guilty of hiding Sariah, but in their argument, without being the person who caused her death. That argument depended on the possibility that Sariah had operated the weapon herself. The physical evidence would now be used to test that possibility. The medical examiner concluded that Sariah's time had ended from a firearm injury above her left temple. More importantly, the examiner testified that the weapon had been discharged from an intermediate distance. Based on the pattern around the injury, the muzzle was believed to have been roughly 2 to 2.5 feet away. The examiner considered a self-inflicted injury unlikely because of the distance required between Sariah's head and the weapon. The defense challenged that conclusion, but it was not the only problem with its account. Police dispatch audio captured Zarrius telling authorities that Sariah had not been struggling with her mental health. Meredith also testified that her daughter had been making plans for the future, including an upcoming family visit. The jury also had the letter Zarrius wrote while Sariah was still officially missing. In it, he asked that they be buried beside one another and referred to having loved her, while elsewhere claiming he genuinely did not know what had happened. Then there were the choices that followed the fatal injury. An innocent explanation required the jury to believe that Zarrius discovered his wife dead, feared being blamed, and responded by destroying evidence that might have supported his version. He removed the affair screenshots, disturbed the bedroom, concealed Sariah, and constructed a false account of her walking to work. His claimed memory loss did not clear him. It simply meant he could not describe the one period that mattered most. After approximately 10 hours of deliberation, the jury rejected first-degree murder. They did not find that the state had proved the highest charge, but they also rejected the defense's central claim. Zarrius Hildabrand was convicted of second-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence. His sentencing was scheduled for October 2026. Under Alaska law, the murder conviction carried the possibility of decades in prison. The verdict left one thing uncertain. The jury was not persuaded that the killing had been proved as premeditated first-degree murder. Let's see what happens in October. If you're watching this after sentencing, then please do comment with the sentence that Zarrius received. Thank you so much for watching. I'm uploading daily true crime and dark content here on this channel, so make sure that you're subscribed, hit like on the video, and also drop a comment so you get shown more of my stuff. Please do be careful out there, and I'll see you tomorrow.